In the sterile hum of the ICU at Seattle General Hospital, the air carried the faint scent of antiseptic and quiet desperation. Monitors beeped steadily, a rhythm that had become the soundtrack of Nadia Osei's life. At 31, she was one of the most skilled nurses on the ward, calm under pressure, gentle with the fragile, and fiercely protective of her patients. 7 months pregnant, her belly rounded beneath her pale blue scrubs, she moved with a careful grace. She never complained about the swollen ankles or the backaches. This job wasn't just work. It was her way of building a normal life, far from the shadows of her past. Nadia had grown up in the foster system, where survival meant keeping secrets. Her foster brother, Kai Morrow, had become something dangerous in the Pacific Northwest's underworld. A man whispered about in dark corners but never seen clearly. A wolf's eye tattoo marked his loyalty and power. Years ago, she had asked him to stay away so she could raise her child in peace, without the weight of his world. Kai respected that boundary, watching from a distance like a silent guardian. That rainy Tuesday afternoon, the ward was busier than usual. Nadia adjusted in foreline for a post-surgery patient when the double doors swung open with unnecessary force. In strode Bryce Fontaine, a 44-year-old billionaire whose tech empire had made him a household name. Tailored suit, expensive watch glinting under the fluorescent lights, and an entourage that included his anxious assistant clutching a bandaged hand. Bryce's face was flushed with irritation. "I need a private room. Now," he barked at the nearest nurse. "My assistant cut himself. I've donated $4 million to this place, this year alone. That should buy some priority." Priya, a young nurse, stammered, "Sir, we follow triage protocols. There are critical patients." Bryce cut her off, his voice rising. "Do you know who I am? Money talks. Move someone if you have to." Nadia stepped forward, her hand instinctively resting on her belly. Her voice remained steady, professional. "Mr. Fontaine, I understand you're concerned, but we can't disrupt care for a stable patient. Your assistant's injury looks minor. We'll treat him as soon as a bay opens, but jumping the line isn't possible. Patient safety comes first." Bryce's eyes narrowed, contempt twisting his features. "You? A nurse telling me what's possible? Look at you, pregnant and still working like this is some charity case. I could buy this entire hospital and fire everyone in it." Dr. Trevor, a young resident, tried to intervene. "Sir, please calm down. We're doing our best." Bryce shoved past him, towering over Nadia. "Get out of my way." She reached calmly for the phone to call security. "That's your right to complain later, but right now, you're not coming through this hallway." In a flash of rage, Bryce's hand flew across her face. The slap echoed sharply, snapping her head to the side. Pain bloomed hot across her cheek, and she stumbled, one arm wrapping protectively around her unborn child. The ward fell deathly silent. Monitors continued their indifferent beeping, but every eye was fixed on the scene. Priya gasped, hands flying to her mouth. Nadia tasted blood where her lip had split. Tears stung her eyes, but she didn't cry. Not here. Not in front of him. Security arrived moments later, but it was too late for fairness. Dr. Holt, the 62-year-old chief of medicine, rushed in, his face pale at the sight of their biggest donor. Without reviewing footage or questioning witnesses, he turned on Nadia. "Nurse Osei, this is unacceptable. You were aggressive toward a major benefactor. You're fired, effective immediately. Escort her out." Nadia stared in disbelief. "Doctor, he slapped me. My face, the baby." "Save it," Holt snapped. "We can't afford this kind of disruption." Security guards, avoiding her eyes, led her to the locker room. She gathered her things in heavy silence. Stethoscope, spare scrubs, a small ultrasound photo of her baby tucked in her bag. Outside, rain poured down as she stood on the sidewalk, cheeks burning from more than the slap. Her phone buzzed with a lawsuit notice. Emotional distress claimed by Bryce Fontaine. The next day, her world collapsed further. Bank accounts frozen. Eviction notice taped to her apartment door. Medical bills suddenly insurmountable. Bryce's lawyers moved fast, using his influence like a weapon. Nadia sat on her worn couch, hand on her belly, feeling the baby kick as if sensing her fear. She had fought so hard for this ordinary life, late-night shifts, saving for a crib, dreaming of park days and bedtime stories. Now it was slipping away because one powerful man decided rules didn't apply to him. In the dim hallway of the hospital that day, unseen by most, Kai Moro had been there. He had slipped in quietly, as he sometimes did, just to check on her from afar. He witnessed the slap, the betrayal, the way his sister shielded her child. His jaw tightened, but he honored her wishes and waited. When her call finally came that night, his deep voice answered on the first ring. "Kai, I need help." "You don't have to say anything else," he replied softly. "Go to sleep, Nadia. I'll handle it." What followed was a storm no one saw coming, except those who knew the wolf's eye. Bryce celebrated that evening in an exclusive club, laughing with associates over expensive whiskey, convinced the disobedient nurse had been put in her place. Then his black card was declined. His phone exploded with alerts. Stocks plummeting 19% overnight, accounts drained, key executives resigning with cryptic messages. His security chief handed in his notice after receiving a single text. Panic set in. Desperate, Bryce called in high-level fixers, offering millions. But when he showed them a black envelope sealed in red wax, bearing the unmistakable wolf's eye stamp, every one of them backed away, faces draining of color. "We're out," they muttered. "That's not someone you cross." His private jet was readied for escape, but black SUVs blocked the runway. Hooded men moved with military precision. Bryce was hooded, bundled into a vehicle, and taken to a dimly lit warehouse on the city's edge. When the hood came off, Kai stood before him, calm, unhurried, the wolf's eye tattoo visible on his forearm. Security footage from the ICU played on a large screen. The slap, Nadia's stumble, the hospital's betrayal. Bryce's arrogance shattered into terror. "You touched my sister," Kai said quietly. "You put your hands on a pregnant woman who was only doing her job. Now you'll learn what real power feels like." Under duress, with no way out, Bryce signed everything over. Companies, properties, patents, bank holdings, to an irrevocable trust benefiting single mothers and healthcare workers. Tears streamed down his face as his empire dissolved on digital documents. Weeks later, the hospital felt different. Kai had quietly acquired it. Dr. Holt, stripped of his title, now mopped floors in the same ICU wing, eyes downcast whenever he passed Nadia's old station. Bryce Fontaine sat in an orange jumpsuit, facing federal charges after anonymous evidence of tax evasion and embezzlement surfaced. In a private birthing suite, paid for by the new ownership, Nadia held her newborn daughter. The baby girl had her mother's calm eyes and a hint of family strength in her tiny grip. Sunlight filtered through the blinds as Kai stood by the window, a rare soft smile on his face. "I wanted normal," Nadia whispered, tears of relief falling. "No drama, no sados." Kai nodded. "You deserved that. But when someone breaks the rules that badly, family steps in." Quietly. Nadia looked at her daughter, feeling the weight of the past lift. She had endured the slap, the betrayal, the fear, not with shouts or vengeance but with quiet resilience. And in the end, justice arrived not through noise, but through unbreakable bonds. Sometimes the strongest power is the one that stays hidden until it's needed most. Bryce had learned that the hard way. Nadia had learned she was never truly alone.